Díghúib agus fáilte mór over iscadí Podchraoladh le Cynthia. This is Cynthia's podcast, and today we're talking about tourism, such an important part of the Irish economy and, of course, the SMEs that are based in Ireland South, whom I represent. So I've just had what we call a high-level round-table discussion, but basically that means that we had a lot of important stakeholders in the room looking at supporting the European Union's long-term strategic plan for tourism. And I have two people in the studio with me who are going to do far more talking than I will about this because they're very adept at this. And firstly, I want to introduce to you the lady on my left-hand side, who's Misa Labarile, who is Italian. She is a European civil servant and she works on tourism. And importantly, she's the pen holder for the new tourism strategy that will be unveiled in the coming weeks or months. We will find out. But it's a long time coming. The last one was about 15 or 16 years ago. And I'm also joined by an Irishman, Raymond Keaney. Now, Raymond is assistant head. Is it assistant or associate?
Assistant.
It is assistant head. I got that right. In the School of Tourism and Hospitality Management in TU Dublin, one of our great technological universities in Dublin. Misa, can I go to you? Can you tell me about the pen holding for this important strategy? And look, let's go really simple. Why is it important for Europe to have a tourism strategy?
Because tourism is a key sector for Europe. It is an industrial sector. It is an industry that drives economy and builds social cohesion. These days, we need more mutual understanding, more social cohesion, more trust, more travelling, more coming together. Mm-hmm. Tourism does all that and creates jobs and creates prosperity. We need that.
Absolutely.
So we need a new strategy for it.
So, Misa, anybody and everybody who's tuned into Europe now talks about, competitiveness, security and defence. Where does tourism lie in that landscape?
I think tourism can drive competitiveness, but tourism also needs support to be more competitive. And those two needs, we can meet them through a strategy. A strategy is essentially a document the European Commission produces to look forward, for actions, presenting actions that look forward, that can support the sector going forward, doesn't look back. Although it does remember that tourism is a very resilient, good sector, lives on its own, does its own thing. A strategy is when the European Commission comes in and says there is a need to act at EU level. We can help more if we come together at EU level. And this is what we're going to do in the years to come.
Yeah, and I hope by you speaking in the way you're speaking, committed, animated, excited about this, that you're dispelling all the myths that are out there. And they're out there, aren't there? And the naysayers, Raymond, they're out there. And they say basically, a strategy, another document that will gather dust on a shelf, a non-living document, a dead document. Nothing will happen on foot of it.
I don't think so. I believe not. This is a living document. And what makes it so is the fact that we don't just write it by ourselves. I don't wake up in the morning and write a strategy. That would be ridiculous. Tourism doesn't belong with the EU. It doesn't belong in Brussels. It belongs with the governments and with the regions and with the destinations that do it. First of all, because that's where the law is written. That's how it's regulated. But also because that's where tourism actually happens. It's got these very local roots. But there is so much that we can do at EU level that can add value to what destinations do and people do. And that's where we are working on.
Yeah, now, tourism and the EU. We don't always hear of a budget line for tourism, of a specific commissioner for tourism. But things are changing, thank goodness. And I just want you to give that little mini historical perspective on the fact that tourism is in the room now in Europe, isn't it?
Absolutely, Cynthia. And I think it's wonderful that, just since, I think, December 2024, we had a new commissioner appointed for the very first time with tourism in the title. Prior to that, tourism was one of 39 units within DG Grow, along with textiles. So literally it's gone from somewhere where you couldn't find within the European Commission on its map to now suddenly being in a title. And I think that's very, very significant.
And also the Commissioner himself, because it's a him, is significant. And so is the trio of council presidencies. Now, I don't want to lose viewers when I start mentioning jargon like that. So please explain what I've just mentioned.
Just I suppose in simple terms, as many viewers will know, Ireland takes over the council presidency on the 1st of July. But of course, a council president doesn't happen in isolation. So essentially, it operates on the basis of trios as defined in the Lisbon Treaty. So our trio partners this year will be Ireland, Lithuania, and Greece. And of course, with the commissioner being Greek, that's quite significant in terms of what he might want to deliver in Athens in November 2027. I suppose what's also interesting is the fact that, of course, 2027 has been designated as the International Year of Sustainable and Resilient Tourism by the United Nations. So essentially for 2/3 of the 18-month presidency, 2/3 of that time will be within that particular context.
Just to explain, you mentioned 2/3 because it's 6 months for Ireland to lead out
Correct.
on being presidents of the European Council. The European Council is obviously the ministers coming together
That's
for
right.
council meetings at their department or committee levels and so forth. And then after our 6 months, which ends in December of 2026, then we have Lithuania.
That's right.
And then we have Greece for 6 months.
Correct.
So it's interesting the tourism, I suppose, definition that we would have, or how we define those countries by tourism. Ireland, very much defined by tourism. Greece, certainly as well. We could call that old tourism, could we? What about Lithuania?
Well, obviously, Lithuania is a new country. It's a country that joined the EU in relative terms back in 2004. So it's relatively recent, I guess. And like in many countries, it's looking to improve its own competitiveness, its innovation capacity, its regional focus, etc. Now, obviously, given its geographical position, Lithuania might have bigger worries in terms of security and defence, would be a greater priority for that particular country, logically. But I think that the trio of Ireland and Greece can actually help Lithuania advance its own tourism agenda. And I suppose one of the things that's really important is that tourism becomes regarded as a really critical mission and strategic, sector for Europe.
A priority.
A priority.
Yeah, but you're right. It's that phrase, and you used it at the meeting, a strategic sector. If we don't have that label with weight behind it for tourism, then we could get lost in the wash and in the flow that is Europe, because of the fact that tourism was always seen as a sovereignty of the member state. How can we get active change, not just talk about it as we're doing now? How can we achieve it?
Well, I think we already are achieving a change. Our commissioner, Podchraoladh, who's Greek, you mentioned that, is really very keen on supporting tourism as a priority for this commission mandate. This mandate is 2024 to 2029, so we still got a few good years to push for this.
We do?
Yeah, but he started pushing for this the minute he got the job.
Can you just explain to the viewers, listeners, why? Because we all know his background, but just in a nutshell, this gentleman is not a commissioner who got a portfolio that he wasn't particularly comfortable with.
No.
He's extremely comfortable with this.
He's very comfortable with it because he understands tourism. Not only is he Greek,
Why?
he comes from a, constituency that is deeply embedded in tourism. Tourism for Greece is what was mentioned today, 20%?
GDP.
20% of the GDP, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
He understands tourism, he likes it. He likes it as an industry. And he's also been the president of the Committee of the Regions, which in Brussels is this institution that pulls together regions from all over Europe. He understands how important it is to speak to the local level, a regional level, and he understands how much tourism can impact that level.
And he almost has been handed a difficult challenge. For the first time, tourism, as you said, has been included in the title of the commissioner or of a commissionership.
I think that happened in the past, a long time ago.
Did it?
Yes, but it hadn't happened in so long. And now there is this portfolio for tourism and transport, and it's such a good opportunity in the hands of the right man, I think, because we can do connectivity, mobility and tourism together.
Good. That's what I want to talk to you about. If we have the right person, happens to be a man, the right person, a Greek, is it good that it was coupled or twinned with transport, sustainable transport?
Absolutely. Well, as I listen to Misa there, I'm struck by if listeners of a certain age can think back to an Irish commissioner way back in 1985. We talk about what's important, and I would say it's leadership and its ambition. But we had a commissioner called Peter Sutherland who was in charge of commission.
Yes.
Of competition.
Competition.
And it was he who introduced the idea of deregulating of air transport. And of course, the first Ryanair flight flew out of your own constituency in Waterford.
Waterford Airport.
Over to Gatwick.
I didn't know that.
Yes, way back.
Nice little connections, Misa.
Yeah, way back in 1985.
Wow.
And if somebody had said then that a small little airline in a very small and very economically repressed country at the time would grow into becoming the largest airline literally in the world in terms of international travel, people would have said you were crazy. So I think sometimes there should be no limits to our capacity to think ahead and to get excited about the future. There will be a lot more people travelling in the future. There will be better transport connectivity. So more and more people will be on the move, whether to study, to holiday, to visit, to work. So travel will become simply a greater and more important part of global movement in the future. And also, if you think about the amount of people today who work in countries that are not their home countries. So the whole VFR, visiting friends and relatives, that whole movement of people just to visit each other in each other's countries is one that's going to grow very significantly over the next couple of years as well.
As people invested in this and in a strategic vision with positive actions being taken, are you hopeful? Are you both hopeful that springing forward from this strategy, the tourism strategy, and with the elements in place that we've spoken about thus far, that we will see some positive, I'm going to call it policy change, I'm going to call it budgetary change, you might call it something else?
Am I hopeful for change? I really am. Because I think, and this is, I think, where Europe makes a lot of sense to me in a sector like tourism. You can't do it well if you don't sit around the table and discuss going in the same direction, because tourism, like you said, it's about people traveling. It's completely cross-border. I mean, you can do tourism in Ireland if you just stay in Ireland. If an Irish citizen just stay in Ireland, it's still tourism. But more and more, that'll be international. And we want it to be European. Yeah. Already, Europe is the most visited destination in the world. So, yeah, I'm hopeful that we remain the most visited destination in the world, but beyond that, that we can show the world how tourism should be done, and it should be done in a way that's regenerative for the environment, that's good for the local communities, that's sustainable in the long term, and that it is smart.
And sustainable for the environment, of course.
Yes.
I mean, the green agenda has to be part of the conversation, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, it does. And I think just generally I would make the point that sustainability in its broadest sense, both environmentally, socially, economically, from a regional perspective, this is huge in terms of how we position ourselves for the future. And of course, I mean, I'm very excited about the potential for our sector, for young people, for jobs, for opportunities for people to open up businesses, to look at SME supports, innovative companies, innovative businesses. There's a huge range of companies today that exist because of travel and tourism.
Now, I agree with you, right? But of course, the natural disposition perhaps of some Irish people is to say, well, that's all very fine and fair for the academic in TU Dublin to speak about that, but I know you're absolutely aware of the problems on the ground, and we do have a lot of problems, but let's call them challenges. To somebody who's looking at this, who's providing a short-term let, or they have a business involved in tourism, whether it's a surf school or something else, there are particular problems that have to be faced, and skills shortages, recruitment. Would you like to speak to that, Misa?
I think the biggest problem, you can call it fragmentations, these small businesses are the majority of all the businesses in tourism. 99% of the private sector in Europe in tourism is very small businesses. I come from a country that lives on small hotels, family-run restaurants. I'm sure it's the same in Ireland, but in Italy,
it's exactly the same. We have some fantastic big hotels, conglomerates, or big. But yes, of course,
but it's a little pub.
They're
or in
small.
Italy, it's the small restaurant that is run by mother, father, and daughter. They're everywhere, and for them, there's no point going there and saying, "Oh, here's everything you need to know about youth funding, everything you need to know about AI, this and that." I mean, paying by card would be a challenge there.
Yes.
You see, so there's such disparity for these business, and yet they provide employment at local level. They provide the authenticity of all recipes, of genuine craftsmanships. They are there to keep it all alive. And so we need to support them. And this is what this strategy wants to do.
Can I just say, it is very refreshing. I hope people are taking on board the fact that this is an academic and this is a civil servant, but they're actually speaking your language. Do you want to speak to some of the challenges as well? Because it's not as if you're in some kind of a bubble and you don't know what's going on the ground.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I suppose I've often been struck by the fact that in many cases, first of all, tourism is an export industry, albeit an invisible export. And I would make the case that it deserves the same level of support that those businesses that are export facing, be they in technology or finance or whatever, services,
medical devices,
wherever they are. And that has not been the case historically. And I think it would be great to see things like innovation vouchers for small businesses, so they could try things, and so that the risk is shared for them when they try something new.
And reduction of red tape, Raymond.
Well, absolutely, and make things as straightforward as they can.
Yeah. Yes. Streamlined.
Linked to that is the whole area of access to funding. And access to funding that should be simplified and made easy for people, not something that's going to take way too much time. People haven't time to do that. And I'm a great believer, certainly at a European level, one of the things we're looking to do in the new MFF, if nothing else, is to simplify the funding streams. And we now know that, for example, funding, as per tourism, some of that money will be made available under the Competitiveness Fund, which will be, of course, redesigned at a local level by national and regional partnership funds. So basically, each country will be writing up their own plan as to how they might use MFF funding, obviously in line with the priorities that the EU has set out in terms of what the spend should look like. So I think there's a huge opportunity there at a national level to decide, this is something that's really important for Ireland. We have two indigenous economies, as I would see it. One is agriculture, right, and one is tourism. And tourism is very well developed in certain parts of the country, as you'd well know
I would.
at home. But there are many other parts of the country where that it needs to be developed. But in order to do that, it needs investment.
It does.
So in terms of that investment,
connectivity, and that investment could be energy, it could be the transport, all of that.
So I guess what are the financing platforms to enable that to happen? So we know today building costs have got really, really high. So in many cases, it's not economical for people to build hotels, for example, in certain locations. So how do we look at de-risking investment? These things are really, really important. So as you said, people choose destinations first, and then they choose where they might stay secondly. So basically, what is there to offer in a particular region? What is the accommodation stock? Can you get there? What is there to do during the day?
Exactly.
Critically, what is there to do in the evening?
And can you keep them in that area that they don't just fly into Dublin Airport, hire a car, get to the Cliffs of Moher? I'm using that as one of our main tourist attractions in Clare. Fantastic. Yes, beautiful. I'm sure you have, Misa. And then they get back into the hire car and drive back to Dublin. We want to keep them around the Cliffs of Moher in County Clare.
I'll give you a very simple example. There was a very good, I think, interview done with ITIC a number of years ago by the head of the Travel Corporation, and he spoke about the fact that something like 70% of all visitors to Ireland just went to 5 counties. So we have 26 or 32, depending on how you choose to interpret these things. But the point is, there's huge scope for growth and development right across the country if we choose to look at tourism as a strategic asset.
Correct.
And as a vehicle for regeneration.
And can I now extend there right across the country of Ireland or Italy, but right across Europe? So we've got a couple of minutes left, and I'm just going to ask for a quick response in relation to this. And that is that in these times of geopolitical uncertainty and Europe being encouraged to be independent again and resilient and standalone, or develop standalone options in relation to energy, in relation to infrastructure and so forth, isn't it important that we actually not only celebrate how good we are at tourism and how much we offer to tourists, but that we actually sell it a bit more? Should we market and promote it a bit more?
Absolutely. And we should market it and promote it for what we're really good at doing, which is tons. But think of Europe. You can travel to Europe anytime. This is an open door. We are safe. We are inclusive. You're welcome here. Yeah, there's tons we can improve. But this is a place where you can, whatever you want to do in Europe, you can do. And we're easy to reach. And again, we're safe and open and welcoming.
Yeah, and a lot of young people held off from going to America in recent times because they were afraid, based on their social media profile and history, that they might be detained in some shape or form when they got there. Sorry, just a response to that.
Well, it's just
premise that I put
interesting.
out there.
Somebody had said some months ago, I think it might have been at the European Travel Forum in Copenhagen.
How was
a
that?
colleague, yes, indeed. And somebody said that, tourism is the largest movement, peaceful movement of international people across international borders, which is pretty astonishing, because we often look at movement across international borders in a negative context, whereas in fact this is a peaceful movement embraced by those who are moving and those who are receiving them, and that's really, really, really important. So I think we do it really, really well. I go back to the Queen's speech in Dublin Castle, the first line in her speech, and she said, "Uachtaráin agus a chóirde." Prince Philip and I are delighted to be here and to experience at first hand Ireland's world famous hospitality. Yeah. So we do it very well. We do it very well across Europe. People want to come because of the diversity of what we offer, the fact that we're in very close proximity with one another. So we have a very, very good story to tell. And really, I always think tourism should be linked to well-being in many cases, because people look forward to going away on a holiday, looking forward to taking a trip, even for business, for pleasure, whatever it might be. The anticipation in advance, the enjoyment, when you're there, but also the reflections afterwards, and the photographs and all the positive well-being that creates for people.
Storytelling
I think is
and
very
memories.
Important. Absolutely.
Okay, if you want to hear any more views from Raymond, he's in Technical University in Dublin. Unfortunately, we can't hear any more views from you.
No, I'm very, very reachable.
No, because you're a civil servant and you probably don't have your own podcast or your own Instagram page or something.
We do have a Smart Tourism podcast, but...
What do you have? Tell us, because I'd say they'd love to hear from you again, Lena.
First of all you civil servants, they'll kill me for saying this, we're very easy to find on Google. Just throw out our name, we're very easy to find, and we are always very welcome, very, very happy to hear your views, because, like I said, the strategy cannot be written without everyone's contribution. It's not our strategy, it's our strategy. So we're very easy to find, but we also have a podcast of Smart Tourism. Look it up. We have Capitals of Tourism. So we are winners. Dublin was the winner in 2024. Well done, Ireland. Yeah, and we try to be as present as we can, as much as possible, because we think it is important to be out there and to speak to the citizens and the tourists.
You are out there and you do speak to them, and you've dispelled the myth of EU bureaucrats, civil servants being boring, dull, uninteresting and disconnected. You're none of those things.
And can I just say, just on that.
And Raymond, thanks to you.
No, I've had the privilege of being on the Commission's expert group on tourism for the last number of years. And my own experience is that the Commission team are genuinely a fantastic bunch. Really good people, collectively and individually. And I don't say that because you're sitting here. I've said it to other people in private conversations, quite frankly. But I do mean it. And I think it's important sometimes that is recognised and acknowledged. A huge amount of great work is going on with the small team who are very dedicated, who are very passionate. And that is so refreshing. And that's why I'd be so optimistic about what the future looks like.
Thank you, Ray.
Good. Thank you to both of you. And I just want to say, this is a reminder as to why Europe matters. It matters because there are European jobs and European communities and families behind what we're doing out here. Me as an MEP, my guest here, Misa, as a civil servant, my other guest here, Raymond, as an academic from Dublin. So I just want to say... always stay interested in Europe, because it does matter. Thank you very much for being with me today.
Thank you so much, Cynthia.
Grazie mille. Grazie mille. Mille buenas. Slán. Slán go fóill.
Thank you.